when there's only one thing I can do. But you know that I still don't wanna do it. And love, I can find it again in someone sitting close in the flashes of sin. There are other ways I used to think to find my way around the wood and the smell and the word of farewell that I always had to sound.
My name is Greg Leichty. I live in the Bushel area, and I'm a professor at the University of Louisville in communication.
I'm Michelle Eigenheer. I work at Louisville.com and Louisville Magazine. I live in the Jeffersontown area.
I am Karter Lewis. I'm a Louisville native. I live in West Louisville, and I am an artist and a restaurateur here in Louisville.
My name is Sara Havens, and I'm the culture editor at Insider Louisville, and I live in the Highlands.
For me, the phrase "keep Louisville weird" is really a sort of a celebration of whatever it is that makes us locally distinct. Let me just give you an illustration of that. I watch television of the basketball games for U of L with one of my neighbors who's 84 years old now. He has a big screen TV, so I don't feel like investing in that. So I go over, and he and his family and his sons and some of the neighbors show up, and one of his friends by the name of Red. They have been friends since they were 5 years old. Now, for me, trying to even sort of conceptualize how two friends would know each other from first grade, they went to Catholic schools together and so forth, and that they've remained friends for 80 years just blows my mind. Really. And but that's the kind of community that Louisville really was.
And I think that's a very Louisville thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a very Louisville thing.
It is.
So that's, were you not born here?
Oh no, I was born in the Midwest.
See, to me that's very normal that you would know someone for 80 years. You know, I think that's very Louisville centric. But I think the culture, I think it's still the same. If that's the case, then I think that's what's permeated through the culture, because there is this sort of tradition. I think it's the surprise, right? For those of you who moved here, I think when a lot of people come here, it's surprisingly a beautiful place, and the tradition and all the culture and what it means. The Derby, bourbon, all those things. So I think that people feel that, and that's what makes it sort of interesting, because we're not really on the radar, but when you come here, you love it. It is a very livable. Everyone always says it's very livable. My friends come here and go, "Oh, I buy a house here. It's so livable." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
as a matter of fact, my first academic job in teaching was in Alabama, out in the South. And because of family being so far away, my family was in Iowa, my wife's family was in New York. And that was one of the things when I was thinking about relocating, where can I raise a family? Because I have two daughters. And where can I raise a family? And that has a fairly decent public education system. I mean, people complain about it, but I know what a really bad one looks like.
Yeah, it's not as bad.
No, it's not. Well, it's workable.
Do you think Louisville is an easy place to move to?
It was super easy for me to move here.
And, infiltrate little cliques here and there, neighborhoods.
Like for the media, it's so easy to meet people. Like we knew who each other were before we met.
Yeah.
Once you find something, you just permeate through it. So I think that moving here, it's really easy.
I must say, when I moved back here, for me it was an adjustment, because I came Shanghai, China to New York to Louisville, and I felt it was a little culture shock. Even though I'm from Louisville, and that was the shocking part, was the fact that how could I be culture shocked in my own home? But I think that it's a different way of living here.
It is.
People don't walk.
It's slower.
People drive. It's slower. It's. So I think that if you move to work for one of the Fortune 500 companies and you're coming from a larger city, it is a challenge, but you're right. There's so many great organizations. Meeting people is, I think it's very easy.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of
It's
friends
just a nice town,
passing,
for the
yeah.
most part. But
it's a nice town. It really is a nice
you think it
town.
is?
I think so.
I think
much friendlier than
I think
New
it's
York.
big enough to have some variety, but not so large that it sort of overwhelms
Yeah.
the
Like-
ordinary person.
All of the circumstances around Louisville, like where it's placed, who lives here, just kind of made like this perfect thing for it to have the identity that it does.
But people are genuinely nice in Louisville. I mean, I grew up like that. Like everyone in our neighborhood was nice. Even the mean people, people were nice with manners. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like people would be rude with manners kind of thing.
funny.
But I think that's very...
The like old Southern obligation to,
Kinda.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cuss you out and say I'm sorry at the same time. I think one of the weird things about Louisville is we do gravitate towards something, like a movement. We're very driven by a movement. But you know, when the whole beer thing started, like it took hold in Louisville quicker than any city in America. I mean, it's a national phenomenon. Every guy's growing a beer. But the way that I saw it happening in Louisville in 2009 was crazy. I mean, it was like
It was great.
Yeah, it was like crazy. But it becomes a movement. You know what I mean? You look at the stores on
Yeah.
Bardstown Road, like for instance, the barber, like. They're so famous. They have a line out the door.
The chop shop.
The chop shop.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not boasting my own restaurant. Like on the weekends, there's a line before we open. Like, what makes people so? You know what I mean? Driven that they want that. Do you know what I mean? That thing, that it thing, and we follow it as a culture, and we all know it, and we all
Yeah,
feel it.
I think part of it is like people want to be loyal to
Yeah,
the
loyalty
local,
is huge.
yeah, and they
Yeah.
want to support new things, and then
Absolutely.
if it's good, it stays, and people keep wanting to go to it. So
I think there's one component of the Derby, and especially when I first arrived, you know, back in '91, Derby Festival was in swing, but I didn't understand that they were completely separate organizations and separate sets of events. But I think that element of celebration from Derby sort of infuses a lot of the things that people do in the city, where people are looking for something that has sort of a celebratory edge to it.
yeah, I think that more than just like the local thing, those kinds of places cultivate culture. So when they close, like people are still spray painting your ecstasy on buildings. Slugger really hasn't changed for the people of Louisville, even though, I mean, that buyout was recent, so maybe it will, but I think it's more about like cultivating a culture than saying we're locally owned. Like take Wagner's Pharmacy, which has been here forever, right? And I don't know if I've ever met anybody who's like, oh yeah, I've eaten there, but it's still here, it's still alive, but it doesn't have the impact it did.
I feel like, you know, even Ear Ecstasy is an example. I grew up on that, and as a musician, it certainly speaks to my musical journey as a listener, as an artist, you know, from walking down Bardstown Road in the 80s, like fantasizing about the fact that I'll have an album in there one day. Like, that was huge for me. But I think, you know, it's a different time. Like, it can't, at this point, it would only be a vintage record store.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
very different than the impact that it had in the 80s when that's where we actually went to buy our music. Now people download music. So there's a different function. I think that, you know, Louisville is not in danger of any, you know, our culture being negatively impacted by any iconic brand closing. So I feel that. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think like record stores closing, video stores closing, that's happening everywhere.
Yeah, it's something
But-
that has to happen.
Yeah, other things are popping up like Nulu, for instance, and all those opportunities for little boutiques and bars and, you know, locally owned bars and restaurants.
I think culture continually has to be reinvented.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we think of museum pieces, well, this is the way it was in, you know, the 1970s. And so we recreate a particular scene, but it was changing all the time.
When I first moved to town in '99, Germantown hadn't gentrified quite yet, and so as people started moving in there, and all those little bars and shops started popping up, and then the beards came, and then the hipsters came, and so I think it's gone. I mean, it was kind of exciting when I moved here in '99, and we had Ear Ecstasy and Wild and Woolly, but not quite as many locally owned bars and restaurants, and now it's kind of the opposite. Not that they're related, but I mean, I think it's just as exciting as it was 15 years ago, and even more, I think.
I kind kind of think that Louisville has become like a mecca for creative people, just because like it's like this blue island and this red state, and it's big enough that there are a lot of opportunities, but not so small that if you burn a bridge or if you screw up, you can't start over. And that's something that a lot of people say, like it's a kind of city where you can start over.
I feel like Louisville is in the realm of like an Austin or Portland.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time, like, you know, but I really feel that, like as a native Louisvillian and going to those cities, I can see the parallels, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So
There's a little bit of an identity element here, though, that we're never quite sure who we are. Are we really Southern or are we Midwestern? There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that. We're not quite Southern, but
well, as a native, I would say we're not Southern.
No, we're not Southern.
And we're not Midwestern.
And we're not Midwestern.
And that's what makes us unique.
I actually think that's one of the things.
And
that
I
does
think
make
we
it
know
unique.
that. We kind of know who we are as Kentuckians, as Louisvillians. And so we're not trying to be Southern or Midwestern or whatever. We're just kind of like in the middle. But we have, I think, the best of all those things, right?
That's true.
That's one of the ways I
Wholesomness,
would actually.
hospitality, kindness, grit.
Good food.
Good food.
And we're weird.
And we love to drink, all those things.
So how weird are we?
How weird is Louisville?
How weird are we?
Is Louisville weirder than Austin? I don't think so. But.
Well, Austin's in Texas. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of parallel. You look at Kentucky and Texas. I mean, two very polarizing states in terms of very red states, but where it's blue, blue.
And that's
blue.
exactly how Louisville
And
is.
Louisville is
That's
exactly
how
like that.
Louisville
So maybe
is.
that's the condition. Oregon's not like that, is
You
it?
just have to be different from the rest of your state.
Yeah.
The sore thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
When I was in college, we had the pop soda discussion. Did you ever have that?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
And people would always say, "Oh, we said pop," or "We said soda," and I said, "Well, we said both." That was like coming from Louisville. I did have both. Yeah. At church they said soda, and at home they said pop. So isn't that weird?
I think I had that too.
Really?
Yeah. But my parents are from very different places. And then when we came to Louisville, I said pop, but everybody in school said soda, so you have to change the way you
They
speak.
said soda in school?
Yeah, or Coke maybe?
Coke.
I think
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah, Coke is all soda.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
a Sprite Coke.